This is episode number 57 with the co-founders of Accelerated Waste Solutions, Sherrod Hunter and Fred Tomlin.
Welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Wes Barefoot, where it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs and existing business owners take control of their lives and create freedom for themselves through business ownership. Each episode, I'll be exploring the strategies and tactics of other successful entrepreneurs that have created freedom in their own lives while sharing what I'm learning along my own path to freedom. I'm glad you're here. Let's drop in. Before we drop into the episode, a quick message from our sponsor, 919 Marketing. I've worked with 919 Marketing for years, and there's no one I trust more with my marketing needs in any of our businesses. I've worked with them in our franchise businesses, in my consulting business. I've worked with them on the franchisor side, and I love working with 919 because they take the time to listen. They take the time to understand what it is I'm looking to accomplish through my marketing, who I'm trying to reach, and then they help me put a plan together to do just that. I've worked with tons of marketing companies over the years, and too often it's a one-size-fits-all approach, but not with 919 Marketing. In addition to that, they've developed some amazing technology called 919 Insights, franchising's first and only AI-powered analytics platform. With 919 Insights in place, 919 Marketing can identify the exact topics that matter to your franchise candidates and provide the specific roadmap to help your brand become the highest ranking and most trusted resource when they're searching for answers. So if you're ready to start getting better results from your marketing, and if you want a free demo of 919 Insights, reach out to Graham Chapman at 919-459-8157 or send them an email at gchapman@919marketing.com to schedule your free demo today. So whether you're a franchisor, a franchisee, or just getting started in your first franchise business, make sure to check out 919 Marketing and tell them Wes Barefoot sent you. Now, let's drop into the episode.
My guests today are two amazing entrepreneurs with such a cool story. Sherrod Hunter and Fred Tomlin are co-founders, CEO and president of Accelerated Waste Solutions, which is also a very cool business in its own right. It's really two businesses under one umbrella: Doorstep Details, specializing in trash valet services, and Junk Shot, specializing in junk removal services. These guys, as I mentioned, have such a cool entrepreneurial story, and they share a lot of this journey here in the podcast today. They talk about how they didn't get off to as quick of a start as they planned to, so they pivoted, almost reinvented their initial business model, which then led to some amazing growth that they experienced. They talk about how they've been able to leverage technology in an industry that has never really done so, and how that's given them some very unique differentiators. They talk about their journey to franchising their business and how mentors have been so instrumental to them along this entire journey of building their business and ultimately franchising it. Such a cool episode. Two amazing guys. The energy that they bring is infectious. So I can't wait for everyone to check out this episode with Fred Tomlin and Sherrod Hunter, co-founders of Accelerated Waste Solutions. Let's go ahead and drop in.
Fred, Sherrod, thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate you dropping in on the Path to Freedom podcast. How are you guys doing?
Great. It's a trash-tastic day. Thank you for having us, Wes.
Trash-tastic. I love that. Do you guys have that trademarked?
Not yet. It's coming.
You might need to work on that. I like that. Do you at least have like some trash-tastic shirts or something? Because if so, I'd love to get my hands on one of those.
We've got so many trash puns. We might put the trademark business or trademark office through some serious business, but we got a lot of trash puns around here.
I love it. I love it. So let's see how many of these trash puns we can weave into the conversation today. And I'll try to keep a tally as we go. So we're at one so far. So speaking of trash, tell us a little bit about the business that you guys have together, Accelerated Waste Solutions. Give us kind of an overview of, what the business is all about, where you guys are today. And then I'd love to hear kind of the story of how you guys got to this point.
Awesome. Again, thank you for having us, Wes. I'm Fred Tomlin, CEO of Accelerated Waste Solutions. I'm joined by my co-founder, President Sherrod Hunter. And what Accelerated Waste Solutions is we're a niche waste and recycling firm. We offer two main lines of business you see behind me. One is the nation's only junk removal app called Junk Shop. Allows you to take a photo or video of any junk or trash you're trying to remove with your smartphone. And then the other side of us is the doorstep detail side, which is our apartment doorstep trash collection, where we sign 3 to 5 year long-term contracts to collect trash from residents' doorsteps at apartment complexes 5 nights a week. And we do that operation in 22 states across the country, from California all the way out to Florida.
I love it. So you guys really almost have 2 separate businesses running under the Accelerated Waste Solutions kind of umbrella, I guess might be a good way to explain it.
That's it.
That's a perfect way to
solutions. We have the junk removal solution. We have the valet trash solution.
So it's a great business. Clearly, there's a huge need for junk removal, and then I love the valet trash business. And I didn't realize, because I'm somewhat familiar with you guys' business, but I didn't realize it was a daily pickup service.
5 nights a week.
Yeah, 5 nights a week.
That's 5 nights a week in most cases. Sunday through Thursday is the industry standard.
That's huge, man. I mean, literally, I got trash day tomorrow morning at my house, and my recycling and my trash is overflowing. They pick up the recycling every 2 weeks and trash once a week. And so I actually look forward to trash days. I'm like, let's get this stuff out of here so we can, have room for the trash coming down the pipe, I guess. So much needed services. And my loyal listeners of the podcast, they know this, but I love these, what I call unsexy, dirty service businesses, right? Because there is such a need for any of these types of service businesses. And, we'll get into more of this here in a little bit with how you guys are doing an amazing job of leveraging technology and these businesses that, at first glance, you probably wouldn't think of them as being, highly technological companies. But as you've already mentioned, you've got, an app in your junk removal business, and that's kind of a one of a kind innovation that you guys have created. So very cool stuff there. But I really want to hear, how did you guys come up with the idea to get into the trash or the waste and recycling removal business? And then how did the two of you meet and become partners and co-founders?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it was some serendipity, and then I like to think hopefully a little business acumen. But that said, just to give you some brief background and share with you how me and Sherrod came together. I'm a 8-year U.S. Army veteran. I had my 18th birthday in basic training.
Oh, wow.
After I did 4 years active duty, I went on to go to college. While I was in college, I served 4 years National Guard.
Wow,
but I graduated from University of South Florida with a marketing degree. And I went to go put that to bear over at the marketing capital of the world, which is New York. So went out to New York and worked for a few ad agencies. After that time, I got a little disenchanted with New York. I'm a Florida boy and from a small town. And
a little cold, huh?
It wasn't for me, and it was a little cold.
Yeah.
And so I came back, worked for a marketing agency here in the St. Petersburg, Tampa area. Eventually found my way to a Fortune 500 in advertising sales.
Okay.
Started to have some success there. Was one of the top of the sales board leaders there at that organization. It's where I found Sherrod, or Sherrod found me. He was also one of the top sales leaders at that organization as well. And in our success, we kind of got to talking. What we did for a living was, of course, selling B2B advertising. So advertising to businesses every day. Okay. And so in speaking to entrepreneurs every day as part of my job, I started to get a bit envious, to be quite honest with you, Wes. I go through part of our spiel, so to speak, was to take people through an ROI conversation about their sales. And I quickly find out that I'm usually the most inconvenient thing that this person's got going on in there. They're rather efficient. golfing, and they would definitely let me know, like, hey, Fred, it's going. How much is it for a phone book ad and something in the yellow pages online? Let's keep it moving. And but that said, I started to get envious and explore advertising. And like a lot of your listeners, I looked at a host of different things, everything from starting my own business to looking at franchises like some of them are doing today. Eventually I ran into Sherrod, who he tells it a great story about how he came into one of our lines of service that we still do today in the way of the apartment doorstep trash collection, and how that service and how he introduced it over to me. But I'll kick it off to Sherrod. He tells a great story about how we got into that business.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that story.
Excellent, excellent. Before I tell you that, you should know that I'm from Rhode Island, Wes. So like Fred, can't stand the cold either. I grew up around the cold my entire life.
You got out of the cold.
I got out. I took a family vacation to Florida. I said, whenever it's time, I'm going to Florida.
Why doesn't everyone live here?
So, exactly, man. So funny story. I moved to Florida, picked up a job just waiting tables at a restaurant. Okay. I must have met Fred's boss, must have recruited me, because she said, hey, what are you doing? You should come work for us. My guys are doing this, that, and the third. She must have saw some similarities or something.
No way.
And that's how I landed that corporate job. It really changed my life. The sales training, by the way, was phenomenal. You know, outside sales is not easy to do, right? So it really taught us how to go penetrate, be confident in your sales and be able to present your product and fulfill.
Absolutely.
The thing, like Fred said, we're selling an intangible product, right? So we can't really see the benefits and the results right away.
Sure.
And oddly enough, I'm living at an apartment complex, luxury apartment complex, and I had a problem with my trash. Every single day, I'd have to put it on the back of my car to drive it to the one centralized location and throw it away.
Yep.
So I had a problem. Then all of a sudden, one day, it was a solution to my problem, a garbage can at my doorstep saying, put your trash in the can. 5 nights a week, a company is going to come to pick up the trash.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty interesting until I went to renew my rent, and they tried to charge me $30 extra a day for this service. So I'm like, wait a minute, I can do that myself now. I can put the trash in my own car. You know,
was it $30 a day?
I'm sorry, $30 a month. I'm sorry,
okay.
$30
I was going to say,
every single month. But every month it's just something serious.
Sure.
And you know what they would do? They would justify it by breaking down the daily cost. Say, hey, it's only $1 a day, a cup of coffee a day.
Yeah.
They're coming to pick up your trash. So they try to sell it to me like that. And
yeah.
Mr. Hunter, I saw that nice Cadillac you had. You don't have to put the trash on it. So I'm like, what's going on here? They're selling me on this trash service. So they're making, I figured out, as I'm walking out and negotiated a lower rate on my lease, that they must be making money off of this service.
So the apartment complex was actually making money off of it.
Charging over and above what the company is saying.
Sure.
So it kind of led me back to what I was doing every day, selling something that wasn't tangible. Now I have a tangible service, right, that I can see the benefits of every day as a resident. Now I'm saying, wait a minute. So I have a benefit from a resident side, but the property is making money off of this service.
Yeah.
That was it, man. It just made so much sense to me, right? To get into a business that had those win-wins, but also I could use my sales prowess, right, to go and penetrate apartment complexes instead of local businesses. So just made a lot of sense. And one of the things that I realized, it seemed like, and you could probably relate, sometimes people will work harder for other people than they work for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And I was working hard. Fred was working hard out there selling yellow pages and selling stuff. So we're like, if we can just take a chance and do something, that we believe in, this might work. And so it just made a lot of sense to go in that direction.
Well, guys, I love the story. I love the background of how the two of you connected and kind of where the idea. So it sounds like Accelerated Waste Solutions, or what is now Accelerated Waste Solutions, it really started with the idea for a trash valet service, what you guys call doorstep details.
I said we wanted to run Tampa. The company was Tampa Bay Trash. And
okay.
What was our tagline? What was our tagline, Fred? Do you remember our tagline?
Helping others day after day.
Helping Tampa Bay day after day.
Tampa Bay day after day.
Ooh, I like it. It's got a little bit of rhyming to go with it. It's catchy, and it's probably like gets stuck in people's heads. So I think that's great, tagline wise. But no, seriously, I think it's a good story. And so it sounds like, both of you kind of, climbed the corporate ranks and eventually got to the point. And Fred, you mentioned you were talking to a lot of other entrepreneurs, in your sales role. They were clients of yours and kind of started seeing, hey, these guys are building something for themselves. Whereas, you as corporate employees were really kind of building something for someone else. And I think that's a very common avenue for people to take to get into business ownership. You hear from a lot of entrepreneurs. They're like, hey, by the time I was 5, I had a paper route and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But I think there's even more entrepreneurs out there today that started out, working a more traditional kind of career path and eventually got to the point and said, look, I'm busting my tail for someone else. And I'm getting great results for them, but I'm probably not getting compensated proportionally to what I'm contributing. So why don't I go build something for me? And I know, in my business, the people that I work with, that's the vast majority of them. They've had usually quite a bit of success in the corporate world or whatever their career path has been, but they finally just for one reason or another get to the point where they're like, I'm going to go do this for me instead of doing it for someone else. So, I love hearing that story and kind of the pathway that you guys took, because I think there's a lot of people out there that really resonates with. And I think there's a lot of people that are in a very similar boat today. So I think, them hearing that you guys were willing to bet on yourselves and have gone on to have success and are in a position where, you're poised to go on and have a lot more success. I think that can be very inspiring. So thank you guys for sharing that. So talk to me a little bit more about, the early days, right? So you guys met at a previous job. Sherrod kind of had the idea for valet trash. So what then? You had this kind of light bulb moment, like this is a tangible service. This is literally something that could benefit our clients day in, day out. We're actually selling another revenue stream to our clients. So it's, a fairly easy sell in that regard, I would imagine. So you've got this idea. So then what? Did you guys jump all in, or did you kind of take some time to build out a business plan, or how did it really get rolling from there?
We were all in. Next week, because Fred, the thing is, Fred was a guy, I looked up to Fred anyway. He's very involved in the community. I mean, he was active doing promoting, marketing, flyers, this, that, and the third. And so when I came to him with the idea, I said, Fred, we're bringing millions of dollars into this company, right? And people are trusting us as account executives to get it done. So I told him about this business model, my whole trash problem, right? I say, listen, we're going to go out and make business cards as account executives for this company. We don't need to be the big bad CEOs, right? I'm going to go out and sell this service just like we do every day. Next week, the website was up, the business cards was up, the letterhead, we had the uniforms, we were out there in the streets, me and Fred going to every single apartment complex in Tampa as account executives. We just had it all figured out, Wes. The business plan was down. We just knew we were gonna kill it.
I love that. So you just said, look, we're gonna essentially take the exact same approach as what we've been doing as account executives for this other company, and we're gonna go sell this new service idea that we have. So you didn't call yourself CEO or president or founder, or at least at that time you didn't. I think that's smart. Do you think it took some pressure off of you by doing that?
We thought it did. You know why? Because everybody loved us. Everybody, bye guys, see you again. Give me a bid. They were loving us. Just smiles, hugs, just mutual mystification. We're putting out one bid after another. High fives. Man, it did not work, Wes. Failed miserably. Next thing you know, we don't have no contract. We have no contracts as an account exec. We were the greatest sales guys around.
That's not where I saw that story going. I mean, with your energy, man, I think I'd buy anything you're selling. So, all right. So let me ask you this, because I want to hear what you did after it didn't work. But prior to that, you said you went all in, you had the website up within a week and business cards, and you were, pounding the pavement. Did you quit your other jobs, or were you still working as account executive selling advertising and kind of moonlighting to get the valet trash business up and running?
That's it.
You're on it. We're real, like I said, we're real corporate American transitioners. And so that's what we did. We crawl, walk, run it. We sell yellow pages in the morning and go out and beat doors down at apartment complexes in the afternoon. And like Sherrod said, we did get traction. We got bids presented. We shook a lot of hands, kissed a lot of babies. But that said, we were unsuccessful. Months passed, and we had to look ourselves, because like I said, we're pretty dutiful sales guys. Mm-hmm. We had to look ourselves in the mirror and go, hey, what's going on here? Why, we sell something you can't even feel, touch, or taste. Why can't we sell this, this real beneficial service and around us? So you understand, the valet trash service was actually incepted inside of Tampa Bay. And so the pioneers of the service were actually headquartered inside of Tampa. So it was pretty an adopted service by the time we taken it on to as a service for ourselves. So we were very confused on why this was taking place. Finally, we had a property manager that we had beat down for months and months. And she said, you know what, guys, she took pity on us. And she said, you know what, guys, if you take me to lunch, I think I can point you in a different direction that might give you some different results.
Okay.
And so she took us to lunch, or we took her to lunch.
Yeah.
And she didn't pick a cheap place. And we took her to lunch though. And what she really shared with us pretty much transformed our business, and especially in regards to the niche that we provide. And since we target apartment complexes, we didn't understand how relationships drive this industry.
Okay.
It's even though it's a massive industry in the way of billions, there's well over 18 million doorsteps across the country, and it of course counts for billions upon billions of dollars in revenue every year in the United States. But that said, it's a pretty cottage industry. There's apartment property management companies that operate these. Some are family owned, some are corporate, and all of them are connected through their local apartment association, which kind of acts as this community guide to not only vendor relations, but also education for property management on best practices for operating an apartment complex.
Okay.
And we weren't in that. We weren't in any of those associations. We weren't in any of those relationships. We weren't in any of those rooms or shaking the hands of people that were really making the decisions for contracting these services. And once we understood that the value of relationships, we started to penetrate. We joined our local apartment association. We attended trade shows. We joined committees like the golf committee, the networking committee, or the maintenance mania committee. And we started to gain traction. In the interim, we're not one to sit on our hands. And so while we shared with you that the valet trash didn't gain traction right away, we still at the time were called Tampa Bay Trash. And I had a website up, gosh darn it. And there was some other service that I could put on that site that we could make some revenue from. I just knew it. And so like a lot of people, junk removal was a pretty low resistance business to enter.
Yep.
And so we simply put the service up with the idea if somebody calls in, we'll fulfill it. And eventually somebody did call in, right? We're helping Tampa Bay day after day. So somebody called in. We didn't even have a pickup truck. What we had was a friend's borrowed pickup truck that we had on standby just in case we got one of these valet trash contracts that we had to pull off. So we call him up, hey, we need to borrow your pickup truck, go pick up, I think it was a basketball goal and some other items. And we picked that thing up, and Rod, we're so novice in business. I think the check was like $80 or something like that. I actually called the bank to verify the funds on the check before he deposited it.
Let's start off the right foot. Like I don't want to start with funds overdrawn, right? I don't want.
Man,
like bro, it's $80. But that fast forward it streamlined into a whole bit of a whole nother portion of our business. We had a bit of a luck in that regard where we started our business in 2008. And if you don't remember what happened in 2008, it was the Great Recession, the foreclosure crisis of America. Yep. And we benefited from that like a lot of waste companies. All those foreclosed homes, unfortunately, that people had to experience, they did have to get cleaned out by the banks. And remember, we were becoming experts at relationship building. So at that time, we started to build relationships with asset managers at banks. Started to build relationships with realtors, and we started to grow that side of our business through relationships the same way we started to garner contracts. We eventually got an apartment complex to give us a small little contract for bulk item removal. And that's the symbiosis between us and both of our businesses, is that where a single family home consumer may go through a junk removal event maybe once a year, once every 2 or 3 years, the apartment complex is going through a junk removal event almost every week, sometimes every day. And so that frequency garnered us to go through and get these bulk removal contracts. Eventually, that bulk removal contract got our foot in the door to build that relationship. And we ended up signing our first valet trash contract, believe it or not, which we still have today. Our contracts we signed for 3 to 5 years, then they go into a month-to-month phase. That contract we had month-to-month for almost 5 years. That's how great we were operating it.
Wow.
And we recently re-signed that contract for another 5 years. So when it's fully termed, we'll be there for 15 years at one apartment complex, which is pretty amazing.
No, that speaks volumes to the service that you're providing and the value that goes with it.
Yeah. No, thank you,
man. All right. So there's so much in this story that I want to unpack a little bit and ask you guys about. So seriously, thank you for going into the detail. Like I'm sitting here fascinated because, you know, I've had the chance to meet you guys a little bit, know a little bit about your business, but you know, this is fascinating to me to hear some of this backstory. So first question I have for you, you know, because as you've already said, you guys kind of jumped right in. I mean, it sounds like there was no hesitation when the idea for a valet trash business came upon you. You jumped all in, right? And I like what you said about, you know, you kind of transitioned in, right? You kept your job, you kept your income. And I think that's important for people to hear too, because same for a lot of people that I work with, even in my own entrepreneurial career, you know, we put one foot in and then the other, right? We didn't. Yeah. And I think that's what scares the hell out of so many people when they're thinking about making that transition, you know, the thought of just walking away from a good income and probably benefits and everything that goes with that. It's terrifying. And there's plenty of people that have done that or have been forced to do that. And still gone on to be successful. But I think the point here is you don't have to do it that way. There are ways that you can kind of ease into it and be a little more strategic. So I'm glad that you shared that part of it. But I mean, what do you guys attribute the fact that you just jumped in, right? And I love what you guys told us in terms of, you know, the idea at the time was valet trash. And that didn't take off the way you were thinking it would. But you didn't sit on your hands. You said, what else can we do in the meantime to get some revenue coming in? Right. And so you really reinvented your entire business model almost. And you got started through the junk removal, and the valet trash came later once you kind of developed some relationships. So I guess there's a couple of questions in there I'd love to have you guys speak to. One is like, what gave you the courage and the confidence to say, hey, we're going to do this. We're not going to overthink it. We're not going to, you know, we don't have all the answers right now, but we're just going to dive in and start putting the work in and see what happens. So what gave you the confidence for that? And then also what kept you from getting discouraged when the valet trash side of the business didn't take off immediately? And then also what gave you the confidence to pivot and say, all right, well, this is not going like we thought it would, but we're going to still start doing business, because I think there's some very valuable lessons in there.
No, I think it's a bit of both. We both are pretty A-type personality guys, and when we put our mind to something, we pretty much we measured about what we do. But we're intentional. But once we put forth a plan, me and Sherrod will more likely execute on it. But as far as the courage to jump out from my desk, so to speak, in corporate America, like I told you, we started that business in the Great Recession, and even though we didn't leave maybe till a year after, some of the writing was on the wall. A lot of businesses with that particular industry, advertising, you can imagine it was one of the first budgets to get cut.
Always
kind of knew that we needed to make a transition before it transitioned us. And then secondarily, when I made the leap, my wife happened to be pregnant at the time. And so I know I terrified her. If you thought I was scared, I know she was terrified. But the thing that probably put me over the hump in terms of being able to, you know, look a pregnant woman in the face and tell her that I was going to quit my job in the middle of a recession was that one, I did have a good savings. I always tell entrepreneurs, make sure you got a good savings and really take an account for all your assets. Look at your 401k, look at your home. Just make sure you got your ducks in a row. I had about a year's worth of savings up for all of my essentials. And I just felt like if I exhausted 6 months, 8 months of this, I should be able to leave me enough time to go find a job.
Yes. So what I'm hearing is, and Sherrod, feel free to jump in, man, but you had confidence in yourselves, right? You said, look, we've got an idea. We clearly think there's a need. We're willing to bet on ourselves. If we set our minds to something, we're going to go build it. We're going to make it happen, even if we don't have, you know, all the answers today or know exactly what that's going to look like. But you were also smart about it, right? You did kind of ease into it. You didn't, you know, just walk out of your job on a whim. You know, you made sure you had savings and as you put it, kind of have your ducks in a row. So I think that's great advice, you know, for the aspiring entrepreneur out there. I mean, what would you add to that, Sherrod?
Yeah, I think it's right on what you said. We bet on ourselves. My thing was we were doing this every day, in corporate America, right? Taking risks. The salary wasn't there. It was about those sales, right?
Sure.
And so
yeah, true.
we were
true.
doing that. We had a proven track record of doing that. So it was just like, let me put that energy into this bucket, right? And do something I believe on, I believe in. And the support at home was huge. My wife's support, not too long after my wife got pregnant as well, believe it or not. And I thought that my saving situation was going to work out until she got pregnant. So
That's a game changer, isn't it?
You know what I did, Wes? That same restaurant that recruited me to corporate America, I went right back to them part-time. I hopped in that junk removal truck, and we're going to push this junk removal. I was the junk removal guy. I was doing that from sun up to sundown, or go home just enough time to change, put on my uniform with the tie to go to the restaurant to do it at night. And I did it until I couldn't do it anymore. And the reason why I said I can't do it anymore, because I had enough work, just junk removal work, to say, you know what, let me trade this shift tonight and wake up a little earlier tomorrow and work a little harder to get this junk removal going.
Man, I love that. That's huge, right? So the combination of being willing to bet on yourselves, but also being willing to put in the work and roll your sleeves up and do whatever was needed. Because I think that's something some people struggle with, right? Is they might look at certain aspects of the business and say, well, that's below me, so I'm not going to go pick up that junk or whatever. And really being willing to do whatever you need to do. And make those sacrifices early on so that you can build something that, will improve your life and the life of others in a big way going forward. Wes here. You may have noticed there's a franchising theme to this podcast. And that's because franchising's had a massive impact on my life. And it's the very reason I'm walking my own path to freedom. In fact, one of my companies is a franchise consulting company where I work with people to help them understand franchising and determine if it might be a good fit for them. And if it is something they want to explore, then I help them navigate the entire investigative process and ultimately find a franchise business that's a great match for them. The fact of the matter is there are thousands and thousands of franchise businesses out there today. And like anything, there are good ones and there are bad ones. Even out of the many, many great franchise companies, not every one of them would necessarily be a good fit for you. Buying a franchise is a huge decision and you don't want to wing it. I've helped many people buy franchise businesses over the years, and my wife and I have bought and own franchises today, and we plan to keep investing in franchise businesses. I love helping people understand this process and help them find a business that's going to be a great fit for them and help them accomplish their goals and ultimately create that freedom in their life that we're all looking for. The best part of all of this is that my services are free to the people I work with. And while I do love to contribute to charities and other great causes, I'm not a nonprofit. I'm compensated by the franchise companies I work with when I introduce them to someone that ends up becoming one of their franchisees. It's very similar to real estate, but with franchises. I have the privilege of working with hundreds and hundreds of the best franchise companies out there across practically every industry. So I can be absolutely confident that when I recommend someone to look at a franchise company, I'm introducing them to a very credible and proven company with a solid business model and great support. So if you think you might be interested in learning more about franchising and seeing if it might be right for you, I'd love to speak with you. Get in touch with me by email at wes@path2freedom.com, path2frdm.com. And also check out my website at path2freedom.com, spelled the same way, where I've got a ton of resources, both franchise and non-franchise related, that will help you start down your own path to freedom. And of course, subscribe to and follow the podcast for more great advice about business ownership. And if you know anyone else that might be interested in speaking with me, please share this podcast with them. Thanks for listening to my shameless plug. Now let's drop back into the episode. So what about when you started having, some of these challenges early on and things didn't take off the way you thought it would? I can only imagine that was pretty discouraging. What kept you guys from giving up and saying, look, we got a pretty good thing going here with our corporate jobs. Let's just, we tried it, but let's just keep focusing on this because this is what's bringing in money right now. What kept you from giving up?
Yeah, I think it's those obstacles. The sign of that time with the foreclosed home. The junk removal was going okay. We're turning one job to another, and then we found the opportunity to really tap into that network, to that foreclosure home network. Kind of gave us another opportunity to kind of put ourselves out there and really be able to fulfill and give us another chance. And that kind of allowed us to ride the wave just long enough to finally get our valet trash contract, which started to give us some more permanence, right? So we can really start to make better decisions based on predictable revenue.
Yeah, well, I think that's the beauty of, and you mentioned earlier, I think it was Fred said, talked a little bit about how, there is a very strong synergy between the two businesses, junk removal and the valet trash, because these apartment complexes do have such a need for junk removal. So I think that's brilliant. And it's also unique, right? I mean, there's no shortage of companies that'll come haul off your junk, right?
Right.
You guys know that. People listening know that. But I haven't seen any other kind of combination, dual punch businesses like this. So I think that's very unique. And, when I'm talking to people about franchise businesses, if it's someone I think could be a good fit for a junk removal type business, to me, that's a huge differentiator, just in terms of the synergies between the two businesses. And the other reason it's brilliant is that you got recurring revenue on one side, and then what I would imagine are like larger ticket, kind of one time or once a year, once every couple year type jobs. And that's great from a cash flow perspective, right? Because you got larger sums coming in periodically, and then a nice steady stream of cash flow that, as you said, Sherrod, is predictable. So most businesses are like one or the other. You guys have both, and that's cool.
Sure. That's honestly what allowed us to basically bootstrap, from where we were to the borrowed pickup truck to our first dump truck, right? To a fleet of 25, across 20 states. But that predictable revenue, that point of sale, that daily cash was huge. Yeah. And then once we really started to focus on systems that allow us to monitor our business, right? And to be able to pivot and adjust and to be able to make those decisions, it really helped our business explode.
So I like what you said there, systems. That comes up a lot. You're talking to anyone that's involved in a franchise business, you're going to hear systems and processes. Like, you're not going to find a franchisor that doesn't talk about systems and processes. But, where did that start to come in for you guys? Where did you start getting to the point where you realized, hey, we're doing pretty good, but we can scale this thing? And I want to hear more of the story of how you started franchising in a minute, but when did it kind of dawn on you that, hey, we could be bigger than just, Tampa Bay trash? Like, we could really scale this thing, but we're going to have to get a little more organized to do so. We're going to have some systems and some processes. At what point in time was that? Because this was 2008 as you guys are getting this off the ground. Talk to me a little bit about the evolution leading up to deciding to franchise the business.
Good stuff.
No, good stuff. Well, we're near millennials. We're Generation X's. Rod might be a millennial. We're on the cusp of being a millennial. So we kind of are kind of born into technology to some degree. And we've pretty much been interrupting technology into our business from day one. Like Sherrod said, from the moment we had a site up, I think in a couple of days from the time we accepted our idea. But that said, the thing that kind of grew us across out of our home here in Tampa was really relationships. Like I told you, we had penetrated and started to do business with several apartment associations, or several property management companies in the association. We had one we were doing business with in Tampa and asked us, could we go over to South Florida to the West Palm Beach market? And eventually we did. And we took a chance, went out in that market. It's about 300 miles away from us. And we started to utilize technology. We started with just rudimentary phone technology or phone communication. And then we started to find work fulfillment tools that would allow us to gather photographs from people to verify their work, build reports that we could share with clients. And we started to build systems. Once we had a good fulfillment in a new marketplace, the client would naturally grow us. The secret sauce to Valley Trash, which we didn't go into deep with, is the revenue generation that it creates for property management. An apartment complex, like a lot of commercial assets, is really just value on the cash flow it creates.
Sure.
And property management is always looking to increase, or asset owners or owners of these apartment complexes are always looking to increase the net operating income of the asset. There's only so many ways they can do that, right? They can raise rents, and then the next way is usually amenities. And they, you know, really you run short these days on amenities. All you really got is a gym a lot of times. Sometimes you have an on-site laundry, a car wash, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so they look at us as a real profit center. They charge residents a fee above and beyond the cost of what we charge them, and they keep that difference as profit.
Sure.
And so once you get a good competent operator, they're looking at their other communities to see where they can place us to increase that revenue. One, not only get the immediate revenue generation, but it also increases the value of the asset, the cash flow overall. That said, that client turned into more properties in South Florida. They then asked us, could we go to Colorado? We took a deep breath and we went to Colorado. And
I love it. I love it.
And next thing you know, just to fast forward, that's essentially how we've grown. Good fulfillment. Managers property management companies end up spreading us throughout the nation. But in the meantime, we still wanted to grow our junk removal business, right? That's just the valet trash side of our business. And I just told you the synergy piece for it, the synergy pieces of junk removal and the need for bulk removal, as it's called in the apartment industry. The need for bulk removal and junk removal on a weekly, if not daily basis. And so we essentially followed our accounts, right? Where we started to get more dense in a marketplace, 2 to 3 apartment contracts, we drop a junk shot truck in that marketplace. Kind of skipping over a bit because I didn't necessarily tell you the inception of junk shot. But that said, junk removal wasn't always easy either. And like I told you, as children or as technology, as a technology company, we fought real hard to figure out how we could get some technology to make things more efficient for us. And Sherrod actually told you like he did. He was in the truck, so he was experiencing some of the inefficiencies firsthand. And one of his biggest frustration was the quoting process. It's probably the biggest I gotcha moment in junk removal. If you ever use a junk removal company, most customers' frustration, except when they're calling junk shot, is they get a price over the phone, a quote over the phone, a quote range. They get on site, the technician inflates that range well above and beyond what they were quoted over the phone. And now you're left with a dilemma. You got the big junk truck here, your trash is here. What do you do? Most people just go ahead and capitulate and do the junk removal. Well, Sherrod was running into that same frustration. And if you can kind of tell, we care about people. And he was, even though he wanted to still do business, we're still capitalists. He just felt that he didn't have to give people a false impression about a quote process because it wasn't necessarily always his fault. He'd give a quote range over the phone. He'd get on site, and sometimes people wouldn't necessarily tell him about that piano over there.
Well, yeah, you're relying on them. You're relying on them to accurately tell you because I've been there. Like I get this. I've used the same junk removal company 3 or 4 times now. You guys would know the company if I said the name. Great, good service or whatever, but that was always a bit of a frustration. I'd call them and they'd be like, well, so like, how much stuff do you have? Is it a quarter, an eighth, a 16th, or a 32nd of a truck? And I'm like, I don't know how much a 32nd of a truck is. And they're like, well, it's like the size, a love seat. And I'm like, well, I don't have a love seat. I don't need you to pick up a love seat. Like the stuff I have is nothing like a love seat. And so it was always like a little bit of a question mark in my mind. They'd be like, all right, well, it's going to be roughly like this amount. And then they get out there and I've probably done this 4 times now. So sometimes it was closer to what they originally told me. Sometimes it's been more. I don't know if it was ever actually less than what they told me. And so I could see it on both sides, right? Where, maybe there's some, misleading, but also you're relying on the client to like accurately tell you. And I know for me, it's like when I know they're coming, I'm like looking everywhere, like what else do I have that I need to get rid of? So it could change from the time I called to the time they actually get there. So totally get it. Totally get it. And before you go any further, just so I don't lose this, I love that you pointed out how the fact that Sherrod was in the truck, he was feet on the ground, gave you that insight. It helped you identify a problem that then you could solve, which would not only help the business, but also create a better experience for the clients. I don't know if you guys would have ever figured that out, or you definitely wouldn't have figured it out as quickly had Sherrod not been in the truck, actually, out there kind of in the trenches, if you will.
For sure. And I would say to add to that, half of the technology that we have now, since I think we did that in 2011, we developed that app.
Oh, wow.
It's all because of guys are in the truck and they're sharing their story of what they're learning. They're sharing the problems of losing a key, right? And now we have a system of making sure the key doesn't get lost every day, right?
Yeah.
And that's literally our culture. 10 years of sharing what's going on in the streets from a ground level to the guy at the top, and coming together and making sure it's going to help the next person up, the next man up. And that's the part of the beauty of our business.
So how did you guys create that culture, right? How have you incentivized your people, your team to actually come to you with suggestions or ideas for how, you could implement new systems and new processes to create better efficiencies and make everyone's life easier? I mean, was that something you would say you've been intentional in doing, or did it just kind of organically happen?
It's been intentional across the board. I mean, It's by God's grace we had to start, right? And learn every single piece. So those customers didn't know that I was the same guy that answered the phone that was doing that job. You see what I'm saying? They didn't know. So to be able to even learn that, like that conversation, and okay, now even though we have a system for app and transparency or trashparency, I gotta throw a trash phrase.
That's pun number 2. I really am keeping tallies.
We're working on it, man. We're working on it.
2.
But even though if we have a system for that, we have to have a system for phone calls, right? To enhance that experience as well. So once we figured that out, everybody that comes in now, they understand that there's no cap on this, right? The sky's the limit. And I'm gonna tell you why, because we're the inventors and the founders of the Junk Shot app. You know how we found that? Because we did the same job you did. Now you have skills, we see what you have. What can you do to help us take it to the next level? And everybody feels empowered that way. And honestly, they are the most important people, because these are the guys that are dealing with the customers in the field. The people who answer the phone, they're dealing with the customers, right? So if they're not feeling empowered, our business goes out the window. And so by doing what we did, we wanted to make sure that we can instill that same power, that same energy, and that same sense of pride in anybody who comes into this organization.
That's so smart. And it's so true. And you make a good point, right? Without your teams, without your people, like, you don't have a business, right? So, and having those people feel empowered, I guess my bet would be you have far less turnover than a similar company that doesn't have that same culture, where they encourage their people to come to the table with great ideas and suggestions, and they actually empower them that way. Because that's an organization people want to stay with and they want to grow with. And I don't care what business we're talking about. It's always the biggest challenge, right? Is finding and keeping good people. So I love hearing that. And I would also imagine that the fact that you guys can say, hey, your role that you're doing, we've done it too. Yep. That tells them, the leadership of the company is not asking anyone to do something that they haven't done themselves or wouldn't be willing to do themselves. That goes a long way as well. So those are some really good pieces on, leadership and intentionally developing a culture within your organization. So I love hearing that type of advice and experience. So you almost expanded out of necessity, right? At least with the trash valet business, because your clients, and through these relationships that you guys developed, they were saying, hey, we need you over here. We need you over here. And you just kind of rose to the occasion. I like what you said earlier, Fred. You're like, can you come to Colorado? We took a deep breath and we went to Colorado. Like, it's what you do. You don't turn down that opportunity. Right. But again, it's another good example of how you guys didn't overthink it. You said, hey, you think we can go to Colorado? Yeah. I'm sure we'll take some bumps and bruises along the way, but we'll figure it out. So at what point did you come to the realization that you wanted to franchise the business? Because I'm assuming that wasn't like the goal day one back when it was Tampa Bay Trash, right?
No, absolutely not. We're actually pretty stoked for a few years, even when we transitioned over to Accelerated Waste, and we got even our monikers that we have today in the way of Junk Shot and Doorstep Details. We've been growing at a pretty decent clip since then, and even till today. And so when we looked at our own success, we could continue to launch locations as we grow on contracts. We've even placed Junk Shot trucks in markets now prior to having any valet trash contracts in the market. We got several markets where we've launched Junk Shot prior to launching or having valet trash contracts in the marketplace, because we wanted to prove out a business case for ourselves.
Nice.
And to be honest with you, quite frankly, Wes, we're selfish with our success. We got tired of being selfish with our success. We wanted to actually understand how we could grow and help other entrepreneurs grow, not only through the systems that we had created, but also through the relationships that we had created. One of our clients' biggest frustrations with us is that our junk removal side of our business isn't big enough for them. They want us to be even more places. Because we're different in the fact that we're a commercial-led business. And that was another thing when we led down this journey. We didn't talk much about it when you were asking about some of our early days and even to the day, but we rely a lot on mentorship. Even in our early days, if you would have saw us when we were just guys in the truck, it wasn't we never missed a chance to go to our small development. In our city, we have a small business development center. And it's sponsored by our university here. But we would go there. We would go there, and they had mentors and different past business owners that basically volunteer their time to coach young entrepreneurs like us and missing some of the mistakes that we might make otherwise. And so they cut us out a lot of headaches, quite frankly, allowed us to look around corners that we wouldn't have saw otherwise. And we continue to do that even when we started to look at franchising. You know, me and Sherrod, like I told you, we're always going to do some research before we do anything. And we started to look at the landscape of our competitors. Believe it or not, we have one of our larger competitors is based here in Tampa Bay, and they're also one of the largest franchise companies in the area. So we've got two of our main competitors.
I know who it is.
in our marketplace. And so we were looking, we of course we wanted to study and understand what was part of their growth model, what was part of their successes, what was some of their failures, right? We got to watch them take some hiccups through their brand.
Yeah.
And we wanted to avoid some of those as we started to grow. And so we started to investigate everything from, building out our own FDD or getting a franchise consultant group to come and help us build out. We looked at all those different options. And throughout that journey, we started to build some relationships, and we met Gary Finley and Todd Bingham. They're part of Fran Experts, the Restoration One group. And they met us, and we instantly they allowed us to ask some questions. They asked us some questions, and we found we had some synergies that we could be beneficial for us in terms of building a partnership to help us grow. Yeah. And they've also saved us a lot of headaches as we started to grow our franchise, not only just in the way of what we hope to be sales, but more so in the way of perfecting those systems and making sure that success that we see is translated over to our franchisees. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man, that's so important, right? I mean, everything you just said is spot on, even if we're not talking about franchising, right? I mean, just the importance of having mentors, as an entrepreneur, and really that applies to pretty much any aspect of your life, right? But someone that's already done it, someone that's had more success than you have, someone that's already made the mistake so they can help you avoid making those same mistakes. And I like how you put it, it's kind of see around the corner, see what's coming next. It's so crucial. And in particularly, if you're a company that's scaling and now you want to look at making that transition into franchising, because it's a whole nother ballgame. Like you guys as founders, your role changes when you're franchisors now, because as you already said, you enjoy being able to kind of coach and mentor other people that are starting their own entrepreneurial journey. But I've seen people start franchising their business and they didn't fully realize like how their role was going to change. And then they realize like, oh, I don't like this. I want to go back to actually running my business, not helping other people run their businesses. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of, legal stuff. You mentioned the FDD. There's just so much to think through. And, for me being in my role as a consultant, I see hundreds and hundreds of franchises and I see quite a few, what I would call emerging franchises. So they've more recently started franchising. They don't have, a whole lot of a track record or hundreds or thousands of franchisees. I'm not opposed to those types of businesses by any means, but the first thing I always look at is who's the leadership of the company and what's their background. And so for guys like yourselves, like I would give you a lot of credit for being able to realize and also being humble enough to recognize that, we've got a lot of experience in this business, but we haven't done franchising yet. So let's go find some guys that have. And the guys you mentioned, Gary, Todd, I mean, there's some of the most well-respected, executives in franchise. I mean, you look at Gary Finley's track record, it's amazing in terms of the franchise companies he's been involved in and helped grow and scale. So you went out and found guys that have done it before that are going to be able to mentor you through this process. And so for me, if I'm learning about a more emerging franchise and it's the founders and they don't have a background in franchising and they're just kind of trying to figure it out as they go, I'll be like, I'll check back in like 5 years and see if one, they're still franchising, and number two, how they're doing. But, if it's the track that you guys chose to take, I'm all ears, because I'm like, this is a great opportunity to get in ground floor. It's a good concept. It's unique. It's differentiated. And they've got some franchising expertise that's going to help them grow this thing the right way. It's a whole nother ball game in my eyes. So I think you deserve a lot of credit for that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, you get to the point that you guys were at when you started franchising, you'd had some success. It's easy to let your ego get in the way a little bit and be like, we don't need someone to help us do this. We've gotten this far. Like we could figure this out too. So I love hearing that. And I'm glad that you guys partnered with the people that you did, because I think it's going to turn into something very, very special.
I appreciate you saying that. And you really hit it on the head. I got to laugh because it was about 5 years ago when we thought we were ready. If you just asked me and Fred alone, we had both businesses doing well over $1 million each year. I mean, it was clockwork. We had a business like science. And when we met Todd and Gary, we're ready. They came out, saw us, looked us in the eye. They said, this is nice, but you're going to want to do this, and this, right? And just like you said, it's a completely different business. So we needed to make sure this business runs where we can be completely hands off.
That's right. Yeah.
But still focus on growing it. And it took us 5 years. We were able to still grow the business 20% year over year, but it took us a long 5 years just to perfect every in and out, right? From the different departments, right? From the billing department to the support department to the managers, over our managers. But I'm glad that it came that way. And I appreciate you understanding that journey, because in our head we were ready, man, and it's been tough for us to wait these 5 years.
No doubt, I can imagine. Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline to kind of say, well, let's really shore some things up, build some things out before we then try to step on the gas with franchising. But it's put you guys in a position, I think, to get off to a much stronger start and ultimately grow faster, would be my guess. So, on that note, maybe that's a good segue into, tell us, where is Accelerated Waste Solutions today? Because it has been more recently that you actually started franchising the business. So, where are you guys at today? What's the outlook for the next year or two? And then I'd love to, hear what you guys' vision is long-term for the business as well.
So we launched our franchise company in 2020. So we sold our first franchise at the end of last year, and they opened up this year. They're 5 months strong. If you called them and asked them, they're talking breaking even within 6 months. It's unbelievable. Yeah,
that's
husband
huge.
And wife team.
Yeah.
The culture is there, the care is there. They're literally part of the family. It's unbelievable. So we have them up and running, and then we have 2 more signed, getting ready to open up as well. So we're in the game now. So it's exciting, but
it's off to the races, and the three of us talked a couple weeks ago to kind of prep for this podcast, and I think it was you, Sherrod. You were like, I was like, how's everything going? You're like, man, I just hung up with our first franchisee, and like they had some questions, and they're actually doing business. And he's like, man, that was like one of the best phone calls I've ever been on, just all smiles. And I was like, that's so cool. So
that's the business.
So what's kind of the vision, going forward? And obviously you guys have already talked about how you had a vision at one point, but that vision changed. You were willing to pivot. But, as we sit here today, what's kind of the vision long terms? Where do you want Accelerated Waste Solutions to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, even further out than that?
No, we want to continue to grow, of course, but like I said, we want to share in that success. So much so that the contracts that we've garnered over the last decade that span, like I said, from California to Oregon, up the East Coast, all through the Midwest, from Oklahoma to Nebraska, believe it or not. Whenever we take on a franchisee, we built out our business model, And so that the franchisee has an opportunity to take on those existing contracts with existing revenue from day one. It was one of the beneficial springboards for our other franchisee that Sherrod was mentioning. And it's quite unique inside of any business model for that matter, but let alone the franchise world, to be able to walk day one into actual revenue.
Cash flow,
And so that's one of the big growth pieces of our franchise, but more so making sure that we build a network of franchisees. We're looking at our franchisees to make us stronger, even though we can grow and operate at a distance. Like I told you, there's nothing that sells this business more than the local relationship. Oh, I can garner business sitting here in Tampa, Florida. I can tell you, if, like I said, Sherrod was telling me about the phone call he was beaming from. We sit here every day in awe in terms of our franchise right now, where the emails that she gets from just the relationship. She's a past dental hygienist. So just a few months ago, she was plugging in cavities, and now she's dealing with junk removal, and she's killing it. And
that's so cool.
She's killing it. And that's really based on those local relationships that a franchisee is able to create. And we can't duplicate that as best as I like to. I can't be the person there to shake someone's hand and be an actual business owner, somebody dedicated in that community that wants to make a difference in that community, have a reflection of a great business that benefits people with employment and, of course, life-changing revenue for themselves and their family. So that's the growth model for us. We're going to be looking to gain 100 locations, and knock on wood, in the next 3 to 5 years is our hope. And we're working our butt off to make sure we see that happen.
Well, I think you guys are well on your way to doing that. And you know, that's the beauty of franchising and why it works, right? Because like you said, so many businesses revolve around relationships and local relationships. And so it can be really hard to scale it, you know, from afar. And just to kind of highlight what you mentioned earlier, Fred, with how unique of an opportunity it is to be able to come in as a new franchisee and potentially step into some contracts that are already in place. You know, these are longer term contracts as well. And to be able to have that cash flow from day one, I mean, it's phenomenal. If you guys have any contracts in Wilmington, North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, or if you get some, give me a call, because you know, we should talk. That's
believe it or not, we're there. I'm in Myrtle and Wilmington. So
are you really?
Let's talk offline, man.
And you'll have to get on to Todd Leonard, because I'm pretty sure I asked him about that like 4 months ago, and he said, no, nothing there.
Sign contracts every day. We sign contracts every month.
All right, so maybe it's changed. Maybe Todd's off the hot seat then. But anyways, interesting. But no, that's huge, right? And that can really get a franchisee off to a quick start by having, you know, some of that revenue coming in day one, because any business there's going to be a ramp up. So that just helps with the ramp up in a big way. And like I said, I think you guys are doing it right. I'm curious, like, you know, what have you learned through some of your mentors, and what are you guys looking for? Because you mentioned, you know, one of your franchisees has a background as a dental hygienist. So what was it about, you know, this franchisee or you know, did you say it was a husband and wife couple? So what was it about the couple that made you say, hey, these guys, this is who we want for franchisee number one? Because I know you guys know how critical it is, you know, where you are today, that, you know, these first few franchisees that you bring in, that they're the right fit and that they're going to have a very high likelihood of being successful. Because if you don't get the right people initially, it's very hard not to go backwards, you know, when you're franchising. So, you know, what are you guys looking for in franchisees? Clearly, it's not a prerequisite that you have experience in the waste industry. So what was it about these folks that you said, this is who we want as franchisee number one?
Cool thing about them, they're actually high school sweethearts, husband and wife.
Oh, yeah. You don't hear that much anymore.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. I really appreciate how they love each other and talk about each other. But I'll tell you what, number one, to be part of this organization, you have to value people and be able to nurture relationships. And that's what came across instantly. And before we first met with the husband, before we could even meet with the wife, just how much he was talking about her, right? And how people react to her and how she likes to love on people and go out there and cares. That was number one, right? And then has to be someone who's still willing to lead by example, right? Even them, she was cleaning deck, but she's still out there. She has to get out there. She's going to get out there and get her hands dirty if she has to. And someone who, is going to do what they say they're going to do. So those values were extremely important to us. Someone who can lead by example, and that's what we got from them. And someone who was passionate about what we do. It's like they kept saying one thing when we, went further along the process, like, it just makes so much sense to me. It just makes so much sense. And it was because at the end of the day, she understood that once you do this business right, you're literally helping people. There's nothing negative that can come back if you're putting out positive. And that's what made sense. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing that. And, a couple things I'd like to highlight there. One is, because this is a very common misconception that I run into is, people that I connect with, their tendency is, if they want to find a franchise business, they're going to look at, all right, well, what do I have experience in? What industries do I have experience in? I need to go find a franchise that's somehow related to an industry that I have experience in. And that's typically not the case, which may be a bit counterintuitive. It's more usually franchisors are looking for certain personalities, maybe certain broader skill sets, but they're not usually looking for someone with direct industry experience, to come in as a franchisee, because that's what the systems, the processes, the training that you guys have spent all of these years developing, that's where that comes into play, right? But you can't train personality. You can't train work ethic. You can't train, someone to go out and know how to develop relationships and treat people the right way. So I'm really glad to hear you guys talk a little bit about that, and to hear that that's how you guys are looking at it. And so hopefully anyone out there listening, takes that to heart, because that's something I battle with all the time. It's like, look, you got to really keep an open mind if you're serious about finding the right franchise business for you, because in a lot of cases, it's going to be the last thing you would ever imagine yourself doing. Like I would bet some money that your franchisee number one a year ago, when she was working as a dental hygienist, if you'd have said, hey, you're going to own a trash valet and junk removal company, she would have like, what are you smoking? You're crazy. Right. So I always take a chance to kind of highlight that, because it is so counterintuitive to a lot of people that aren't kind of familiar with this process. So, I don't want to let you guys go without giving you a chance. I mean, we've talked a lot about the business, and so I think throughout the conversation, we've learned a lot about really these two different businesses that run alongside of each other and have some good synergy together. But like, for someone out there that is maybe looking for a great franchise business to get into, give us some of the bullet points of, why Accelerated Waste Solutions could be an interesting option. What are kind of some of the key things you'd like to highlight about the business model, and some of the things that you think are unique and really differentiate you. I know we've hit on some of that already, but give us like the maybe the elevator pitch on kind of the franchise opportunity, if you will.
And we need another show.
I know we'll have to do round two. You guys' story was so fascinating, though. I spent a little more time there than I was planning to, but that stuff was gold.
No, I'm dashing. No, essentially, we're the nation's only junk removal app, patent protected. There's not many businesses that you're going to join that you got a real deal value of a patent protected brand, and a patent protected system that has got a 20-year runway on. And then secondarily is the contractual piece of our business model in the way of valet trash. Having that secured and having a bottom line to your revenue that you can predict every single month is invaluable to a business. And there's very few businesses outside of like gyms and other subscription-based models, like some lawn care, that really understand the value of a subscription-based model. And there's not many that, and in those business models, and a lot of times you have to sell hundreds. Hundreds
slow
of
ticket
subscriptions.
Yeah.
In order to make that business model make sense. And on the valet trash side, you're talking about selling anywhere from 5 to 10 contracts in your territory that can change your life. To out to the revenue that these that would have to do with a gym.
That's a really good point, because you're essentially getting, probably in most cases, hundreds of doors with one contract.
Got it.
Right.
Average apartment complex is about anywhere from 200 to 300 doorsteps.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's the coverage of your units, and you're charging clients anywhere from $10 to $15 per unit per month is what you're earning off of those type of contracts.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, I know I mentioned this earlier, but the combination of recurring revenue and then, you know, the larger ticket jobs with the junk removal and then the synergy between the two. Sure. I mean, you're not going to, I can't think of another business where you've got that kind of combination. And so, you know, recurring revenue businesses are great because there is more predictability. Typically you can value them a little bit higher if you're looking to sell. Right. But to your point, a lot of times, you know, the subscription based, you know, membership based businesses, it's much lower ticket. So you do have to go out and get hundreds and hundreds of them to really have a substantial amount of revenue coming in. So that takes time. You know, there's a pretty long ramp up with those types of businesses. Whereas stuff more like your junk removal business, which are larger tickets, you can usually scale those a little bit quicker, get to cash flow quicker, but there's no predictability. You know, we've got some businesses that are more of that model. And, you know, we had 2 record months in a row here recently, but guess what? We go back to zero on day one of the next month, no matter how good we're going, and we got to build back up again. So that combination, to me, like, that's one of the most exciting things about what you guys are building. And then talk a little bit more about the patent. So I want to make sure I understand this. So you guys have a patent on a junk removal app. So even some of these bigger players in the junk removal industry that have been out there for a very long time, these kind of 800-pound gorillas or whatever the saying is, they can't go and roll out because they got deep pockets, right? So they can't just go out and roll out a junk removal app and kind of take what you've done and build on that.
No, they can't, and they haven't to date. And my patent attorney is biting at the chopping at the bit to hold somebody infringes on his work. And so
he wants to prove that it's a rock solid.
If you ever hired a patent attorney, that's their whole reason for being. They like taking your money up front to get your patent, but the whole reason for being is defending them. And a good patent is built to defend. And we hadn't had anybody impede on it to date, not from any of the 800-pound gorillas you heard in the room or for anybody else. And so that gives us a lot of elbow room to grow our brand and to grow us with a key differentiation in the marketplace from day one. We just talked to our marketing company that's handling marketing for our franchisee out in the Richmond market. And he started to share, like, you're starting to get people to search for junk shot specifically by name in that market in just a 6-month time period.
Yeah.
And the reason being is if you go and you look up junk removal, once we drop into a marketplace, there's going to be no one else with the app. So once we let you know that you're searching Google, you're looking for junk removal, most people are compelled just to understand what the app experience would be like for junk removal.
Yeah.
And even if you don't choose to download the app, once we get you on the site, we got a lot of sticky points there to make us continue to be of value to someone, even beyond downloading the app. There's our bigger truck, better pricing model, which is unique to us inside of the entire junk removal industry, meaning that we keep the largest trucks with the most affordable rate to fill them up. We want to keep that key differentiation to make sure that we don't lose business just based on that whole confusing 1/3, 1/4, 5/4 load process that our competitors do. Yeah. And the reason why we can have that bigger trucks, better pricing model is because of the photograph capability of our app. That transparency, I'll give us one more pun. Transparency that Sherrod talked about, or the insight that we get from a customer, allows us to make very efficient decisions with our junk removal. We're probably one of the only junk removal companies that know what the trash looks like before we show up on site. So we can actually send a truck that already has material in it without sending them to the dump if we know we still have space enough to take on that junk removal client.
There you go.
So, and we're actually doing that for our franchisees, our care center, and we call our call center Care Center. It's an acronym that's basically the culture of our company. CARE stands for customer service, convenience, affordability, reliability, and environmental responsibility. But that Care Center is handling all of that logistics for our franchisees, because guess what? We told you was the most important part of our franchisees' life, day in the life, is building relationships. That's what we want you out doing. We want you shaking hands with property managers. building relationships at apartment associations, going to networking events. And guess what? When you get your team set up in the morning, you hand them off to the care center team, and we're routing them from job to job. We're actually coaching them. We have an internal messaging system that's coaching them through different jobs, giving them encouragement when they do the right thing. We get Yelp reviews, right? We live and die by Yelp reviews as a service-based business, or Google reviews in general. And so whenever our team are getting those great reviews, we share that across the entire team in several different states, even with our franchisees, so everybody can feel the value of that success. So that's our brand. Those are the values of our brand. And of course, the key differentiation that makes us a good business model.
A lot of good things there. And I love how you pointed out that you're able to be, it sounds like pretty price competitive, bigger trucks, best value for the size of the truck, because you have this technology. You're not surprised, right? When you get out to a job to remove junk, you're not surprised by what's there, and you can work more efficiently because hey, we can squeeze an extra load on here because we know exactly what's on the truck and we know exactly what's in this next load. So that allows you to save a lot of money and people, running back and forth to the dump or wherever you're taking this stuff. And something else you hit on that I wanted to highlight, right? Because one of you said it earlier, this is a great business to really help people. And that might seem a little bit funny to some. You're like, well, we're talking about trash here, guys. Like, how are we really helping people? Well, everybody's got it, right? And so if you're making someone's life easier, they're not having to, haul their trash down 4 flights of stairs at their apartment, throw it on the back of their car, and take it to the dumpster every single day. That's huge. That's huge value, because most people that are looking to get into a business, they're looking at the economics. They want to, make sure they feel like there's a good ROI and everything. But most people also do truly want to be in a business where they feel like they're adding value to the people that they're working with. And I think some people may, at surface level, look at a business like Accelerated Waste Solutions and say, well, that doesn't necessarily check that box for me. That doesn't have as much of that kind of warm and fuzzy feel good that I'm looking for. And so I'm really glad you guys pointed out that it really does. And then to go with that is this is helping the environment, because you guys do a lot of recycling, right? So there is kind of an eco-friendly, vibe to this as well, which is becoming, more and more important to most people. So a couple things I wanted to highlight there, but I know I've kept you guys a long time. I know your time is very valuable. So we'll kind of start wrapping this up. But before we do, what else would you like people to know about Accelerated Waste, about your franchise opportunities that maybe we haven't had a chance to hit on yet?
Good one. I think we pretty much touched on a lot. We're excited about that app. The Junk Shot app could easily be a household name, right? Yeah. We talk about now, using a picture to set those expectations, right? And to be a convenient factor. But also the future of the app, when we start incorporating spatial recognition, right? And start incorporating machine learning to really automate that process. That's when we start getting excited. That's when we start disrupting the entire industry for those companies that can't do what we do in the future. When your average consumer knows that entire junk removal process can be automated from the palm of your hand, and other companies can't do that, because we do have 20 years to really enforce this patent. So as we work on getting 100, partners in within the next 10 years, so a lot of consumers are going to know about this technology. Yeah. So really excited about this revolutionizing the way people feel about the junk removal industry as a consumer. And as a matter of fact, Wes, the service industry as a whole, we're looking to entirely transform and revolutionize that with our support and with our culture and with our care.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to watch you guys do it. I think you're well on your way, and really appreciate it. Before I let you guys go, I do what I call a lightning round at the end of each episode that I do. It's the same 4 questions that I ask every guest that comes on the podcast. So we can run through this pretty quick, but if you're willing to stick with me here for another minute or two, I'd love to run through the lightning round. And what we'll do, since there's 2 of you, is I'll ask the first question, and then, maybe each of you answer it, and then we'll just kind of progress through like that.
There it is. Sounds good.
Awesome. So first question of the lightning round is simply, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? And that could be in business or in life.
I'll keep it in the business lane. One of the best advice that I got was early on in mentorship was about not taking on too little funding. When we were, as Sherrod shared with you, we were bootstrapped, but we did at some point need to seek out capital. And we actually ended up partnering with the Black Business Investment Corp here in the Tampa Bay area, who helped us out with our initial funds for our first order of trash containers, our first inventory of containers. But that said, we were a bit gun shy about asking for a bigger dollar amount than what we asked for. And it was really out of humbleness. We thought, like I told you, we had a meek attitude about being able to do a little with a lot. And I had a mentor that kind of put the brakes on that. And he said, one of the things that you want to hesitate from doing when you're growing a business is getting yourself halfway to the lake. You don't want to get in a rowboat, get halfway to the lake and run out of steam. Or you don't want to get to the 50-yard line in your business. He's like, and a lot of entrepreneurs have a scarcity attitude toward being able to fund their business properly. And so that doesn't mean that you're inefficient with your funds, but it does mean that you have a proper goal in mind and that you reach that goal properly. So that's some of the better advice that I got, is that make sure when you're funding your business that you got the I's, cross your T's, but you make sure that you have enough funds to carry you all the way through, cross that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I give very similar advice to the folks that I work with that go on to get into a franchise is, look, make sure you got a little more capital than you think you're going to need. And that way you're not spread too thin, right? Because, especially, and also make sure you got enough money to cover your living expenses. Otherwise you start making bad business decisions when you start worrying about how quickly can I start pulling money out of the business to pay myself. So I think that's great advice. What would you say is best piece of advice for you, Sherrod?
Best piece of advice I've heard is really learning how to harness the power of positive thinking. It's been transformational in my life.
Yes, indeed. That would be right up there at the top of my list as well. So next question is curious, do either of you guys have any sort of a morning routine, something that you try to do every morning to prime yourself for a successful day?
Yeah, me and my wife wake up, try to pray every day together, and then it's pretty much a kid show after that.
I understand.
I'm not one to get up in the morning. I like to think I get up in the morning and work out. Some days I can pull it off, some days I don't, so I won't count it for my real routine. But just me and my wife and my family gathering together, that's something I really hold true and dear to my life. I think it gives me good stability, sends me out my door with the right mindset. So that's a real big piece of starting my day. Other than that, I live on a lake and I got a bunch of fish in my backyard that I actually train to be a bit aggressive. So every morning I wake up, got a handful of fish food, walk in the back, and I'm feeding my bass and my bluegill back there.
I was going to say, what type of fish are we talking about? He's got piranhas or something back there?
Me and my neighbors, we both stock feed our lake out here.
Okay,
and, so
I got
when
you.
we get up in the morning, I like to keep them a little bit aggressive, so it's part of my little routine.
I thought you were going to say you get up and take a cold plunge in your lake every morning, but I guess in Florida, the water's probably not that cold anyways. But
not there yet.
That's cool. I love it. What about you, Sherrod?
That's funny. I take a plunge in my pool in the morning. I got a heated pool, man. I bust some laps out.
Oh, no, man. You need to go cold. Put some ice in that pool.
Man. I keep it warm for me, but
that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Cold shower, cold pool. That's an absolute game changer. I do a cold shower every morning, and that's part of my morning routine. And I won't get into too much detail. And I'm not like a psychopath. I get into a hot shower and do my thing, and then last 2 minutes ice cold, because that's like the first hard thing of the day. It's good for you. Like there's health benefits. It's good for you, but it's a mental thing, right? If you first thing in the morning, you do something you don't want to do, but you know it's good for you, get you in that mindset of, hey, there's going to be other things today that I don't want to do, but I need to do. And it's a good little trick I picked up a few years ago. But anyways, maybe dump a few bags of ice in the pool next time you go to hop in.
We can work with that.
My neighbor actually has a cold plunge, and the neighbor has a cold plunger, and he's been trying to tempt me into when
there's something to it. Try it.
He does it every morning. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's something to it. Now it sucks. It's going to be miserable. It hurts, but there's some physical and mental benefits to it, or at least I've found.
I drop a few degrees at a time. Right now, I got
there you go. Yeah,
I'll bring it down a little bit more, but the idea is there. I'm with you.
You can ease into it. I hear you.
Ease into it.
But you guys have talked about mentors and learning from other people. Curious if either of you were readers, and if so, what book you're reading right now.
So I'm actually reading a book written by one of my mentors. It's Dr. Jomo Cousins. It's called 60 Prayers in 60 Seconds, Strictly Business, right?
Okay. All right.
And it combines two of my greatest loves. It's the love of God and the love of business.
I love it.
And just, topics, verses, explains it, but it relates it right to business. I literally take
that is cool.
And I incorporate something every day into my life for what I read in that book.
What's the name?
60 Prayers in 60 Seconds, Strictly Business by Dr. Jomo Cousins, one of my mentors.
Love it. I just jotted that down. Awesome.
Sure.
What about you, Fred? You reading anything right now?
I just finished the book. I'm not reading right now, but I finished the book about a month or so ago, called The Automatic Customer. And it's a book by John Warrillow. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. But you should be able to find it. Just search out Automatic Customer. It's a great Audible, quick read. But what it does is it breaks down several different types of subscription-based businesses. And it basically explains how you can turn almost any business into a subscription-based business. It's pretty fascinating. And so I was looking at it to make sure we shored up some things to ensure that we've got a great reoccurring revenue business of our own to offer to franchisees. But it was still a great insight read, just a whole host of different businesses you would never think of being able to turn into subscriptions. He can pretty much convince you that you can do it with almost any business. But it's not always easy. Every business has its challenges.
Sure.
But a great quick read.
Okay. Awesome. I'll check that out too. That does sound very interesting. So thank you guys. And then final question, and we'll put a bow on this thing, is what is your definition of freedom, and are you living it?
Nice. Freedom, my definition, the power to pursue what makes you happy and without being hindered by past mistakes, failures, sins, whatever, just the power to move forward. And definitely living it, especially now with the franchise business, doing it every day. And I think it's magnified more that I can bring other individuals into that, and I can help them live out their definition of freedom as well.
Absolutely. Love that. It's powerful. Fred?
I'm like a lot of people, it's probably gonna sound cliche, but freedom for me is time and choice, right? The ability to be able to make decisions when I want to and how I want to within reason, and being able to make a choice to spend the things that I value with my life. That's what I really call freedom. We're getting there. I haven't gotten all the way through breakthrough. I keep busy these days, but I truly feel blessed in the position that I am as an entrepreneur. I definitely on a path toward freedom without being too cliche. But that said, I'm still on the path, but I'm happy where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite question to ask, and why I like to do this lightning round is because I get to hear responses from every single person I have on the podcast, and to me, it's interesting to kind of compare. And it's been really interesting since starting the podcast. Everyone has at least a slightly different definition of freedom. Like, freedom means different things to different people. But one of the most common things that I've heard in response to that question, especially from the successful type of people that are coming on this show who all have very similar mindsets, is everyone kind of usually throws in something like, I'm there, but I can still get more there, right? It's like this kind of constant pursuit of, it's pretty good, but it can get better if I keep working at it. So I love that. And guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Has been a lot of fun. I know that you took a lot of time out of your busy schedules to be here. So I appreciate it. The audience appreciates it. I'll put links to the website, things like that, where people can connect with you, learn more about the business and the franchise opportunity. We'll put all that in the show notes. So I just wanted to say thank you. You guys are definitely an inspiration. I've learned a lot from you just in the short time that I've spent with you. Know everyone that listens in is going to get a ton of value from it as well. So appreciate everything. Keep doing what you're doing. And man, I can't wait to see what you guys build with this.
Thanks so much for having us, Wes, and we look forward to the next time.
Yeah, we'll have you on for round 2 once you get to number 100. How about that?
Let's do it. It is. Looking forward to it, Wes. Thank you.
Sherrod and Fred, thanks for dropping in. Appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate you. Take care.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know when a new episode is released. You can also check me out on my website at www.path2frdm.com. And if you want more information about franchising or just want to say hello, feel free to contact me at wes@path2frdm.com. Thanks again. Now go drop in.